Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going deep, really deep, into some fascinating stuff from the Quran.
Buckle up.
Yeah, it's a chapter called AlMa'arij, which translates to the ways of ascent. And, well, let's just say it tackles some pretty big questions about life, death, judgment, the whole shebang.
It really does. We're talking about Judgment Day, folks, and the Quran doesn't hold back on the imagery.
Not at all. So for anyone just joining us, this is where we break down complex, sometimes even controversial religious texts and try to understand what they tell us about ourselves, about our world, about, well, everything.
And Al-Ma'arij, it really throws you right into the deep end. The chapter opens with someone asking about this inevitable torment, like when is it coming? How bad is it going to be?
Right, straight to the point. And the answer is pretty stark. No sugarcoating here. No one can stop it. It's going to happen.
Exactly. And then it gets even more intense. We have this description of Allah as the Lord of the ways of ascent.
Okay, now that's an interesting title. What's the significance of that?
Well, on one level, it's about his absolute power, his authority over everything. But there's also this incredible imagery of angels and the Spirit ascending to him. And it all takes place on a day that lasts 50,000 years.
50,000 years? That's a long time.
It is. And I think that time scale is really important. It's not just about emphasizing how vast and powerful God is, but it also challenges our human perception of time. Like, what does 50,000 years even mean to us? It's almost impossible to grasp.
It's almost like the chapter is trying to shake us out of our limited way of seeing things. Wake up. This is bigger than anything you can imagine.
Exactly. And then you have this really interesting contrast between that vastness and how the disbelievers view Judgment Day. They see it as something distant, far off in the future.
But of course, God sees it as near.
Right. And that's where things start to get really interesting, I think, because that tendency to see Judgment Day as something distant, something we don't have to worry about right now, it's pretty human, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We do it all the time. Put off that doctor's appointment, ignore that weird sound the car's making, anything unpleasant, we try to push it away.
Exactly. So why wouldn't we do the same with something as potentially terrifying as Judgment Day? But it's more than just procrastination, right? I think it also points to this deeper struggle with accountability.
Because if Judgment Day feels far off, then our actions today, they don't seem to matter as much.
Right. And that can lead to this kind of denial, maybe even driven by fear or just a desire to cling to our comfortable little illusions.
And it's right there where the chapter really grabs you by the shoulders and says, nope, not so fast. Because then it goes on to describe Judgment Day itself.
And let's just say it's not a pretty picture. We're talking molten skies, mountains crumbling like wool.
Tense imagery.
It is. And for good reason. It's meant to evoke the sheer awe and terror of that day. It's like a cosmic wake-up call, snap out of it. And then you see the consequences for those who didn't listen, who didn't take the warning seriously. There's this really poignant description of a man who's facing the torment and he's desperate, utterly desperate. He'd give up anything, his children, his wife, everything, just to escape the pain.
Just a gut-wrenching moment of realizing there's no escape, no one to blame but yourself.
Yeah.
The consequences of your actions right there in front of you.
Exactly. It's heavy stuff. But the chapter, it's not all doom and gloom. It also shows the way out, the path to salvation, by describing the qualities of those who will be honored in paradise. In Jannah, as it's called, in Islam.
And this is where it gets really interesting, I think, because it's not just about personal piety, right? It's not just about praying all the time and being super devout.
Right. It's so much more than that.
The chapter lists things like constant prayer, yes, but also generosity towards those in need, upholding the truth, honoring your pledges.
It's a much more holistic view of righteousness. It's about recognizing that our actions, they have a real impact on others. Our faith, it should show in how we treat the people around us.
It's almost like it's saying faith without action is not enough.
Yeah, or maybe that real faith naturally leads to good actions. It's about aligning your inner world with your outward behavior.
Right, walking the walk, not just talking the talk. But isn't faith at its core a personal thing? Like, how do we balance that inward devotion with all these outward actions?
That's a great question. And I don't think it's about one outweighing the other. It's about recognizing that they're deeply interconnected. Think about it. How can someone truly fear God's punishment if they're out there hurting others? How can they uphold the truth if they're breaking promises left and right?
So it's about living a life that reflects your beliefs in every aspect.
Exactly. These virtues, they create this cohesive picture of a life that's aligned with the divine will.
Okay, so we've got the righteous, the folks who are on the path to paradise. And then the chapter circles back to the disbelievers, those who chose a different path. And the image here is really striking. They're described as stretching their necks, anxiously looking around, almost like they're hoping to sneak into paradise.
It's like they're trying to game the system, thinking they can somehow outsmart God.
Yeah, it really highlights their arrogance and delusion.
Exactly. And the chapter makes it clear, God isn't limited by their choices. He has the power to replace them with better people.
It's this stark contrast, isn't it? You've got the disbelievers, they're restless, always chasing after something, never satisfied. And then you have the righteous, those who find peace and certainty in their prayer and their good deeds.
It really underscores the different paths we can take in life and the ultimate destinations of those paths.
One leads to turmoil, regret, maybe even despair. The other leads to peace, fulfillment, connection with something larger than ourselves.
Right. And then, just when you think it can't get any more intense, the chapter ends with this incredibly powerful image. It describes everyone rising from their graves, all rushing forward, but their eyes, they're downcast, full of shame.
Wow, it's the combination of everything, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like the curtain's pulled back and there's no hiding anymore.
It's the moment of truth. All your actions, all your choices, they've led you to this point.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, if you were standing there in that moment, what would you feel? What parts of your life would you be proud of? What might you regret?
That's the real question this chapter leaves us with. It's a call to self-reflection, a reminder that we have the power to choose our path every single day.
It's a powerful message. And even though the imagery of Judgment Day can be pretty daunting, I think ultimately it offers hope. It's a reminder that it's not too late to change, to strive for a life that's full of meaning, compassion, and connection. The choice is always ours.
And that's AlMa'arij in a nutshell.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time.
See you then.